Monroe didn't even see the man standing behind her until her entire stack of meeting notes exploded across the marble lobby floor like confetti. "No, no, no, oh come on," she groaned, dropping to her knees in her too tight pencil skirt, scrambling to collect the color-coded pages before the elevator doors shut again. She'd spent hours organizing them: marketing briefs, product timelines, quarterly projections. Now they were a mess of graphs and bullet points littered across the pristine floor of Bellmore International's Manhattan headquarters. A low, calm voice spoke above her. "Let me help." Kara looked up, startled. The man crouching beside her wasn't wearing a badge like the other employees. His navy suit looked custom-fitted, his watch probably cost more than her rent, and his shoes were polished like mirrors. She blinked. "Oh, I've got it, really?" He smiled lightly, reaching for a page she couldn't quite reach. "You dropped them. I'm just helping you pick them up." "No need to panic." "No, I'm not panicking," she said, definitely panicking. I'm supposed to present these in 5 minutes and that's in the wrong order. You color-coded them," he asked, holding up a page with a yellow tab. "Yeah, green is sales, yellow's product, blue is marketing." "It helps me keep my head on straight." "I like that," he said, handing her the last sheet. "You're organized." Kara stood, brushing off her skirt. "Thanks, I try. Sorry, I didn't mean to wait. You don't work on the 20th floor, do you?" "Sometimes." He stood too, holding her gaze. She stuck out her hand, awkwardly juggling the papers. "I'm Kara Monroe. I'm just a junior strategist on the marketing team. I've only been here 6 months, so I still get sweaty around elevators." He took her hand. "Aidan Bellmore." Kara froze. "Wait, Bellmore, like?" "The Bellmore." His handshake was warm, confident. "CEO, yeah." Her mouth went dry. "Oh my God, I just made the CEO pick up my meeting notes." "You didn't make me, I volunteered." He pressed the elevator button for her. "Let's call it my good deed for the day." As the doors slid open, she stepped inside, her heart pounding like a bass drum. "You coming up?" she asked, suddenly unsure why she was speaking again. "Nah," he said, stepping back. "I'll let you crush your meeting in peace." She gave him a nervous nod. "Thanks again for the help." "Anytime," he said, then the doors closed and he was gone. Kara barely made it to the meeting room without tripping over her own heels. Her heart was still racing, not because she was about to present to the entire executive board, but because Aidan Bellmore, the billionaire CEO of the company, had just knelt on a lobby floor to help her gather papers, and he'd remembered her name. Aidan leaned against the marble wall for a moment after the elevator doors shut, still holding a yellow tabbed page he hadn't realized he kept. Kara Monroe, junior strategist, color-coded notes and panic in her voice, but sharp. He'd seen it in her eyes, the way she scanned every page, the calm focus coming through the nerves. He liked that. And she was beautiful, but not in the way most women in his orbit were. She didn't try too hard. She had a realness about her. Her blouse was slightly wrinkled, her hair was up in a clip like she'd meant to fix it but forgot, and her shoes were scuffed at the toes, but she had this spark. Like she'd fight for her ideas. Like she gave a damn. He tucked the page into his jacket pocket. Kara's presentation went surprisingly well. She didn't stumble, she didn't forget her lines, and she even got a nod from the head of product. But her brain kept drifting back to the man in the lobby, the way he looked at her like she wasn't invisible. She figured he'd forget her by the end of the day. He didn't. 3 days later, Kara was eating a sad salad at her desk when her manager poked her head in. "Kara, Mr. Bellmore wants you in the boardroom now." Kara blinked. "Wait, me? Why?" Her boss shrugged. "He asked for you by name." Hard in her throat, Kara walked to the 22nd floor, clutching her notepad like a life raft. When she stepped into the boardroom, Aidan was the only one there. He stood when she entered. "Hi," he said casually, like he hadn't just summoned her like a royal decree. "Thanks for coming up." "Sure," she said, confused. "Is everything okay?" "I was reviewing your market segmentation notes from the other day. You made a strong case for targeting Gen Z through micro-influencers." "I think you're onto something." Her heart skipped. "You read my notes?" I read everything that lands on my desk, but yours stood out. She stared at him. Thank you, that means a lot. I want you to join the core team for our upcoming product launch. You'd be working directly with me. Her jaw almost dropped. Seriously, seriously? I mean, yes, of course, I'd love to. Great, he said, smiling. We'll start Monday. As she left the room, her hands were shaking. This was huge, career-changing. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her. Like he saw something more than bullet points and color-coded tabs. The following week was a blur of meetings, data decks, and campaign planning. Kara was sharp, fast, and always prepared. Aidan noticed everything from the way she filled in gaps before anyone asked to how she defended her ideas without flinching. But it wasn't just her work ethic. It was the way she laughed when she was caught off guard. The way she bit her lip when she was thinking. The way she never tried to impress him, just did the work and let it speak. One night after a long meeting, he held the elevator for her. Want to grab a late dinner? He asked. Kara blinked. Like, just the two of us? Yeah, he said simply. Unless you're busy. She hesitated for half a second, then nodded. Okay. He took her to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline, the kind of place you had to book weeks in advance. Waiters wore white gloves, the menus didn't have prices. You come here often, she teased, glancing at the view. Only when I want to impress someone, she blushed. The conversation flowed. They talked about everything: her childhood in Ohio, his years building Bellmore International from a small tech startup into a global empire. He listened like no one else ever had. She asked questions no one ever dared to ask him. By dessert, something unspoken was simmering between them. As they stood by the rooftop railing, lights twinkling below, Kara looked up at him. This doesn't feel real, she whispered. It is, Aidan said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. And it's just the beginning. Kara didn't mean to linger in his office after the meeting ended, but Aidan had just asked a question that caught her off guard. Do you ever wonder what you'd be doing if you hadn't ended up here? She blinked, still holding her pen mid-air above her notepad. Here as in Bellmore, or here as in this exact office with you asking me philosophical questions at 8:30 at night? He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Both. I'd probably be in Chicago, she said after a beat. Working at some mid-level agency, still trying to prove myself. Maybe still living with my cousin, eating boxed mac and cheese and pretending I could afford Trader Joe's. He laughed low in his throat. Sounds, character building. It was, she said, then tilted her head. What about you? Ever think about walking away from all this? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window behind his desk, staring at the city bathed in cold blue light. I think about it more often than I admit, he said. But every time I get close, something keeps me here, she set her pen down. Like what? His gaze flicked to her reflection in the glass. People who remind me why this matters. She felt the weight of that, and then he turned around and the moment passed. Go home, Kara, he said, softer now. You've done enough for today. She hesitated, then nodded. All right, but you should eat something. There's still a sandwich in the break room fridge with your name on it. I'll consider it, he said, watching her until the door clicked shut behind her. By the end of the week, Kara found herself being drawn deeper into the inner workings of the launch team. The meetings got more intense, the stakes higher, but Aidan never stopped paying attention. Not just to the work, but to her. She noticed it once during a brief lunch break in the executive lounge. She was sketching out a campaign idea on a napkin, talking more to herself than to anyone else, when he reached for her sketch and studied it like it belonged in a museum. You think in pictures, he said. I guess so. I've always been more visual. It helps me connect the pieces. He nodded once. Don't lose that. Most people get promoted and forget how their own brain works. She didn't know what to say to that, so she just tucked the napkin into her bag and finished her sandwich in silence. On Friday evening, the office slowly emptied out as the sun dipped beneath the skyline. Kara was still at her desk, trying to rework a messaging angle that didn't quite land. She didn't hear Aidan approach until he set a small box beside her laptop. She looked up, confused. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a simple silver pen engraved with her initials. "You said your old one broke," he said, leaning on the edge of her desk. "I remember you mentioned it in passing last week when you were scribbling on the back of a coffee sleeve." Her fingers closed around the pen, stunned. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything," he said. "Especially the things that matter." She felt her throat tighten and quickly shut the box. "Thank you, seriously, that's really thoughtful." "Come with me," he said suddenly. "What?" He straightened. "You've been working non-stop." "You need air and I need an excuse to not go to another charity dinner. Let's go somewhere." She hesitated. "Aidan." "It's not a date," he said, "unless you want it to be." She didn't answer right away, but then she pushed her chair back and stood. "All right. Let's go." He led her downstairs to a sleek black car waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door without a word, and she slid in next to Aidan, her pulse racing. They drove through the city in silence until they reached the edge of the waterfront. The car pulled into a private marina where a small, elegant yacht bobbed under moonlight. Kara stared. "You have a boat." "I have a lot of things," he said. "But this one I actually use." He helped her aboard, and within minutes they were gliding across the water, the city lights stretching behind them like a trail of stars. The air was crisp, the sky clear. They sat near the bow, the wind tugging at Kara's hair. "You always take your employees on boat rides?" she asked, pulling her coat tighter. "Only the ones who make me forget I'm supposed to be working." She turned to look at him, heart thudding. "Why me?" He didn't look away. "Because you don't try to impress me. Because you speak up even when you're scared. Because you remind me what it's like to want something real in a world that's mostly fake." She didn't know how to respond, her breath caught in her throat. "You don't have to say anything," he added. "I just needed you to know." The city faded behind them and the boat slowed near a quiet cove. Aidan disappeared below deck briefly and returned with 2 mugs of coffee. He handed her one silently. They sat there, side by side, the only sounds the gentle lap of waves and the distant hum of the city. After a long silence, she looked over. "What happens if this thing between us gets complicated?" "It already is," he said. "But that doesn't mean it's not worth it." She took a sip of the coffee, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Then I guess we'll see where it goes." He didn't push. He didn't reach for her. He just sat there, close but not too close, and let her decide what came next. And for the first time in years, Kara didn't feel like she was running to keep up. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Kara stepped into the executive conference room, her shoes silent against the polished wood floor. She wasn't used to seeing it so empty. The usual cluster of assistants and directors had cleared out after the final pitch of the night, leaving the city lights to cast long shadows across the table. Aidan stood by the far wall, gazing at a large framed photo of the company's earliest product launch. She closed the door behind her. "You wanted to talk," he turned, his expression unreadable. "You got pulled from the analytics call today." "Yeah," she said cautiously. "Elliot said there was a scheduling conflict." "There wasn't." She stepped further into the room. "Okay, then what was it?" He moved closer, folding his arms. "Someone from the board flagged our dynamic. Apparently, I'm compromising professional boundaries." Her heart thudded. "Because of the yacht. Because of everything," he said. "The board doesn't like what they can't define. You're not just another strategist anymore, Kara. They see you as someone with influence, and they're terrified of what that means." She tried to steady her voice. "So what happens now?" "I told them to let me handle it." "And how do you plan to do that?" His expression shifted, softening. "By being transparent with them." "With you?" She looked away, unsure what to do with the sudden twist in her gut. "Aidan, I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't plan to get close to you outside of work. I didn't even plan to stay at this company longer than a year." "I know," he said. "That's what makes all of this real." She walked to the window, pressing her fingertips against the cold glass. "They'll come after me next. I'm expendable. You're not." He stepped behind her, not close enough to touch, but enough that she could feel the weight of him. "You're not expendable to me," she turned to face him. "Then prove it," he held her gaze. "I will." The next morning, Kara arrived to find her desk cleared, not of her things, those were untouched, but of the files she'd been working on all week. Her access badge no longer worked for the product floor, and her name had been removed from the central team's shared drive. She walked straight to Aidan's office, bypassing his assistant without a word. He stood behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear, but when he saw her, he ended the call mid-sentence. "They pulled me off the launch," she said. "I know. You said you'd handle it." "I'm handling it," he replied, voice low. "But you need to trust me." "Do I still have a job?" He walked around the desk, placing a file in her hands. "Look inside." She opened it. A new role, same salary, more autonomy, but it was for a different department, international strategy. "You're moving me," she said quietly. "I'm protecting you," he said. "This gives you space, authority, and it puts you out of their line of fire." "You mean out of yours?" He met her eyes. "That's not why I did it." "Then why?" "Because you're too good to be used as leverage." She closed the folder. "And what happens to us?" He hesitated. "If I say I want this, really want this, you need to know it's not temporary. I don't do halfway." She stepped back. "I need time." "Take it," he said, "but don't disappear." She didn't. Over the next week, Kara settled into her new role with a focus that surprised even her. The international strategy team was leaner, faster paced, and less entangled in office politics. For the first time, her ideas didn't just get noticed, they sparked action. She led a pitch that secured a high-profile partner in Milan, and her direct manager started looping her into calls with European investors. She saw Aidan only in passing. Quick nods in the hallway, a glance across the boardroom, nothing more until the gala she hadn't planned to attend. She hated gowns, hated the way people in designer tuxedos spoke in hushed tones about quarterly earnings like they were discussing fine art. But the head of international strategy insisted her presence would signal trust to the new investors. So she went. The ballroom shimmered with gold light, and waiters in black ties floated through the crowd with silver trays of champagne. Kara wore a sleek midnight blue dress borrowed from her boss's assistant and stood near the back, trying not to feel like she'd wandered into someone else's world. She didn't see Aidan until she turned away from a group of clients and found him standing behind her, dressed in a tailored black suit, no tie, his gaze steady. "You came," he said. "I was told it would be good for optics." "You hate optics." "I hate being underestimated more." He nodded once. "You look like you belong here." She raised an eyebrow. "Because of the dress?" "No," he said. "Because you do." They stood in silence for a moment, the orchestra swelling behind them. "I heard about Milan," he added. "Well done." "Thanks. I've missed you." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she took a step closer, lowering her voice. "You gave me space. You gave me a choice, but you never asked what I wanted." He looked at her, expression unreadable. "All right. What do you want, Kara?" she answered without hesitation. "I want to stop pretending I don't think about you every time I walk into this building. I want to stop acting like we didn't already cross the line, and I want to know if this whatever this is has a place in your world." He didn't speak. He simply held out his hand, and she took it. He led her through the ballroom, past curious glances and whispered speculation, and out onto the terrace where the city lights pulsed like a heartbeat against the night sky. He turned to her. "I don't care what they say. I've built this company from the ground up, but none of it will matter if I can't have you in it." The music inside swelled, muffled by the glass doors, but neither of them moved. "Say something," he said quietly. She reached up, resting her palm against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath her hand. "I'm here, Aidan," she said. "That's my answer." He leaned in, and when their lips met, it wasn't rushed or uncertain, it was deliberate, grounded. The kind of kiss that didn't ask for permission, because it already knew the answer. When they finally pulled apart, the city no longer felt like something outside of their story. It felt like the backdrop to where it had always been headed. The first thing Kara noticed when she woke up that morning was the silence. No email pings. No calendar alerts. No reminders screaming about back-to-back meetings. Just sunlight spilling across her sheets and the faint sound of the city beneath her window. She rolled over and stared at the silver pen resting on her nightstand. The one Aidan had given her weeks ago. It had become an anchor, somehow a reminder of how quickly everything had changed. Her job, her place in the company, the way she'd started to matter in rooms she used to tiptoe through. And him, always him. A knock on her apartment door broke the stillness. She pulled on a robe and padded barefoot across the hardwood. When she opened it, a delivery man handed her a long black envelope with no return address. Inside was a single card, thick and embossed, a time, an address. No explanation. She stared at it for a moment before flipping it over. In the corner, in small, unmistakable handwriting, was one word: tonight. Kara arrived at the address just before sunset. The building was unfamiliar, older, tucked into a quiet block on the Upper West Side. It wasn't a restaurant or a hotel. She stepped inside and found herself in a private gallery, the kind with white walls and soft lighting and no signage. Aidan stood near the far end, hands in his pockets, watching a large canvas. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "I didn't even know this place existed," she said, glancing around. "What is this?" He walked toward her, his expression gentler than she'd ever seen it. "It's mine. I bought the building last year." Quietly, her brow rose. "You opened a gallery?" "No. I created a space that didn't ask for anything, just somewhere to think, to breathe." She looked again at the paintings, all abstract, rich with color and movement. "You painted these." "I commissioned them," he said, "but the curation's mine." Each one was chosen for a reason. She stepped closer to a piece near the front, a storm of deep oranges and grays clashing across the canvas. It felt like motion and stillness at once. He joined her side. "That one reminded me of you." Her pulse skittered. "Me? You walk into a room and change the temperature. You don't even notice it." He paused. "I wanted to show you this tonight because I needed you to see that I'm not just a title or an office. I'm a man who built a world he couldn't breathe in until you." She turned slowly to face him. "Why now?" "Because I've spent my life giving other people everything they wanted. Investors, boards, analysts. But I never gave myself permission to want something for me, until you dropped your notes in that lobby." She blinked. "You're saying your entire life changed because of a stack of paper?" He shook his head. "It changed because I saw someone who didn't care that I was the CEO. Someone who just wanted her work to matter. And then somehow, in the middle of all of it, you started to matter more than anything else." She exhaled, her chest tight. "I'm not perfect, Aidan. I question everything. I lose sleep over details no one cares about. I second-guess myself every time I walk into a room." "I don't want perfect," he said. "I want you." He reached into his jacket and handed her a folder. She frowned, opening it, a contract. Her name was at the top. "Bellmore International is expanding into Berlin," he said. "We need someone to lead the launch. Someone who understands the brand and the strategy, but more than that, someone who knows how to fight for the right things." Her breath caught. "You want me to run the entire expansion. I want you to run it your way, full creative control. Your team. Your hires. I cleared it with the board. They didn't argue." She looked up slowly. "You're giving me my own division. I'm giving you what you've earned." Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the folder. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll take it. Say you'll build it. Say you'll let me stand beside you while you do." She studied him carefully. "And us." He stepped closer. "I've never been more certain of anything." She nodded once, then twice, and suddenly her arms were around his neck, pulling him to her. His arms wrapped around her waist, holding her like he'd never let go. And then they were kissing, not like a beginning, but like a promise already made. Later that week, Bellmore International held its annual shareholder gala, but this time, Kara walked in on Aidan's arm, not as a guest, not as a footnote, but as the newly named director of global strategy. The room stilled when they entered, but no one dared to whisper. They didn't need to. She wore her name like armor now, her voice steady, her presence undeniable. And when Aidan introduced her to the board members as the woman who would lead their most ambitious expansion yet, no one blinked. After the speeches, after the toasts and the endless congratulations, they stepped out onto the vast terrace overlooking the skyline. She leaned against the railing, the night breeze lifting her hair. Aidan stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her back. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked. "In the lobby," he said. "Every time I see a stack of paper," she laughed, the sound soft and real. "You know," she added, "if I hadn't dropped those notes, none of this would have happened." He turned to her, eyes warm. "Fate doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just scatters across the floor and waits for someone to pay attention." She looked at him, really looked at him, not as the CEO, not as the man who gave her a title or a gallery or a future, but as the one who had seen her from the very beginning. "I love you," she said. His hand slid into hers. "I've been waiting my whole life to hear you say that." As the city sparkled below them, Kara realized something she hadn't dared believe until now. She hadn't just fallen in love with a man. She'd found the one place in the world where she didn't have to prove her worth because he already knew it. And that made all the difference. Kara's heels echoed softly against the limestone steps as she descended from the private jet onto the Berlin tarmac. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and late spring rain. Aidan followed behind her, his coat billowing slightly in the breeze, gaze fixed on her as if the skyline didn't exist. She'd been here only once before, years ago, and that trip had been strictly budget hostels and instant noodles. But this was something else entirely. The driver opened the door of a sleek black car and Kara slid in, her pulse steady now in a way it never used to be. This wasn't the version of her who second-guessed every move. This was the woman trusted to lead Bellmore International's expansion into Europe, with full authority and no one looking over her shoulder. And sitting beside her was the man who'd handed her the reins without blinking. As the car pulled away, she rested her hand on Aidan's thigh, fingers lightly tracing the crease of his tailored slacks. "You didn't have to come with me." "I wanted to," he said, watching the city blur past the window. "I've handed off plenty of power before, but this is different," she glanced over. "Because it's me. Because you're building something that doesn't have my fingerprints on it, and I've never wanted anything more." They arrived at the new office building just as the clouds parted, casting gold light across the glass facade. Inside, her freshly assembled team was already waiting, some flown in from the US, others recruited locally. Kara shook hands, exchanged greetings in German and English, and gave a brief but commanding welcome before slipping into her new office. It wasn't oversized or ostentatious. Just clean lines, open windows, and a single framed photograph on the shelf. A candid shot of her and Aidan at the launch gala, her head thrown back in laughter, his gaze fixed on her like gravity. She didn't place it there. He had before she arrived. Later that night, they dined in a quiet garden restaurant tucked beneath ivy-draped arches. No press, no business talk, just candlelight flickering between them and the soft clink of cutlery. "I've been thinking about something," Kara said after their plates were cleared. Aidan raised an eyebrow. "Should I worry?" She swirled her wine. "I want to do more than just lead the expansion. I want to invest, personally." He leaned forward. "In Bellmore, in the people." She set her glass down. "I've met junior designers with world-changing ideas, engineers too scared to pitch them. I want to create a division that funds employee-led innovation projects that don't fit the current model." His tone shifted to something deeper. "You're not just building strategy, you're building legacy." She met his gaze. "That's what you've always done." "I just never realized I could too." He reached across the table, threading his fingers through hers. "You're not following in my footsteps, Kara. You're creating your own path, and I'm just lucky I get to walk beside you." The next few weeks moved in fast, exhilarating waves. Contracts signed. Partnerships secured. A Berlin-based campaign for the new product line launched and went viral in under 72 hours. hailed by industry insiders as the most emotionally intelligent branding in a decade. Kara's name began appearing in media features, not as a footnote to Aidan Bellmore, but as the mind behind the company's most daring leap forward. And through it all, Aidan was there. Quietly supportive, never overshadowing, always watching from the edge of the room like a man who'd stopped needing to be the centerpiece once he found something more important to protect. One evening, as they stood on the rooftop of their Berlin penthouse, her idea, his purchase Kara leaned against the railing, wine in hand, watching the city lights sparkle like a constellation beneath them. "You know," she murmured, "I used to think love meant losing yourself. Sacrificing your dreams for someone else's. And now," he asked, stepping behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, "now I know real love never asks you to shrink. It just gives you more room to become who you were always meant to be." He pressed a kiss to the side of her neck. "I want more than just a rooftop and a view, I want permanence." She turned in his arms. "You're not the type to ask twice, so go ahead, do it." He didn't kneel, it wasn't his style. Instead, he pulled a thin velvet box from his jacket, opening it to reveal a ring that gleamed like starlight, a single diamond set on a platinum band, elegant and unapologetically bold. "Marry me," he said, no flourish. Just certainty. She took the ring and slid it on herself. Yes. They didn't wait long. 3 months later, in a quiet villa on Lake Como, they exchanged vows in front of 20 guests' friends who had become family, colleagues who had witnessed the transformation of both their lives. Kara wore a dress that shimmered like water, simple but arresting. Aidan wore a midnight suit, no tie, his ring already on his finger. There were no press releases. No headlines, just a promise spoken beneath the canopy of an ancient olive tree. "I choose you," she said, voice steady, "not just today, every day." "And I protect what I choose," he replied. "Nothing will ever matter more than you." They sealed it not with applause, but with silence, a quiet, sacred stillness as their lips met, and the world paused to make room for them. That night, they danced barefoot beneath string lights and drank wine from crystal tumblers. The lake shimmered around them and the stars felt impossibly close. Aidan pulled her into his arms as the music slowed. "Do you regret anything?" She rested her head on his shoulder. "Only that I didn't drop those papers sooner," he laughed, low and warm. "You know, I still have that yellow tabbed page, framed." She lifted her head. "You're kidding." "I never joke about you." Years passed, but the rhythm of their life never dulled. Kara's innovation division expanded to 5 countries. Aidan stepped back further from daily operations, choosing instead to mentor, to fund, to create. Their love didn't settle, it deepened. Quiet mornings in Berlin. Summers on the Amalfi Coast. Winters in New York, curled up near the fireplace, challenging each other to chess and losing track of time. They never forgot where it started, and they never stopped writing new beginnings, together.